I'm going to be talking to Cari-Lee, who hosts a show right here on AFR, which is called Lifting the Veil. And, she says, truth, rants, solutions, and other interesting topics along the way. This is what she promises you at Lifting the Veil. The website is liftingveils.com. So welcome to the show, Cari-Lee.
Hi, Sonia. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
That's great. I'm really good. It's actually www.liftingtheveil.ca.
Oh, sorry.
No,
I got it all wrong. Because when you put it in, there's a redirect. So I put the link with the redirect in the Facebook group, and so I'm just confused. But I'm glad you straightened that out for us. So it's liftingtheveil.ca.
Liftingtheveil.ca.
Okay, I'm going to put that in the chat room. So what do you do on your show? What veils are you lifting?
Well, you know, it's funny. I started just talking to people. I had a bunch of ideas at first when I started my show, and it was just all my ideas, and I guess I was unveiling myself somehow. And then I started interviewing people, really amazing people that had a lot to offer as far as alternative knowledge, alternative media, people like Dan Dix from Press for Truth, Collective Evolution, Ben Stewart, Max Egan. I've just been able to talk to some really amazing people and connect to some people that are making a real difference in this world. So I kind of think that Lifting the Veil is all about connecting people and finding solutions to this craziness we call life.
And what are some of the crazy things that occupy your mind?
Oh, wow. Where to start? Crazy things that occupy my mind. Right now, the craziest thing that's occupying my mind is taking back myself and coming to terms with the idea that I can't be scattered helping everybody else, because that's leaving me with not much left to go on for me and my family. So I'm drawing back the reins, and that for me is pretty crazy.
Yeah, you're talking about, you know, when you're trying to help everyone, and there just comes a point where you just have to start saying no, because if you just keep helping everyone and making that a priority and spreading yourself too thin, after a while, it doesn't do anyone any good, and you just kind of burn yourself out. You have to pick your battles.
Definitely. And I think something that I've noticed just out in social media, talking to friends and whatnot, is that everybody's kind of at that same point where they want to reconnect with themselves, be the best selves that they can be, because they realize that outside of that, you can't be good for anybody else until you have that, complete, respect and love for who you are.
Well, definitely that helps. I think because if you don't have that, then when you're helping other people, you're doing it in a kind of unhealthy way, I think. Do you know what I mean?
You get lost in it after a while.
Yeah, I mean, that's how you end up with things like codependency, where your whole life revolves around trying to help someone else. I know, I might have had some tendencies in that way a little bit, because I'm just naturally a very nurturing kind of person, and even when I was young, I would, let people into my home and, try to help people out. But sometimes you just have to say no. And it doesn't mean that you don't care, but you just have to draw the line somewhere. You can't help everyone all the time. It's not your job, and it doesn't work. Yeah, no, you have to make sure that you're keeping your stock full. And then when your stock's full, you have plenty to hand out. And you'll notice that once you stop giving to, the ones that are always taking, then they're not there to take, and you've got other givers around you. And that's the part that I'm starting to really enjoy. And it's kind of shocking, too, and weird, because when you're used to always giving and then you're around people that are givers as well, it's more free-flowing, the energy is better, and you get a lot more accomplished. Definitely. Yeah, it's a good point. I think there are healthy ways of giving, and there are unhealthy, unproductive ways of giving. I know that, on the other hand, giving, I think, is also, as I say, it's more blessed to give than to receive. And it is, but I think it has a lot to do with your intention. And I remember what I used to do a lot in the winter to fight depression, because, if you live in Canada, so you know what it's like here. It's not fun in the winter. Everybody gets kind of down. Like, I'm talking to my friends, and they're all just like, oh, they're so blah, they can't wait for it to end. And sometimes in the winter, you just, like, start to think about all kinds of negative things in your life, and you just feel, like, down on everything. And one thing that I always found really helpful was to do some kind of community service. Like, I used to go out a lot with the church that I was involved with, or several churches, and, hand out food and clothes to homeless people and things like that. And in that kind of structured way, I find it is good because it takes your mind off yourself, and just the act of giving in that way, but with clear boundaries, I think it's a very good, healthy thing to do.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic, and it's so good for people to be doing a lot of that and getting out into the community, especially in Canada. It's cold up here. Northern U.S. too. It's quite cold. I'm in Manitoba. It's frigid. With the wind chill, it's like -40 or something ridiculous. Probably more. I'm under-exaggerating. The other thing we can look forward to, because, on that whole, ew, it's yucky and cold, blah, and I'm so over this. This weekend is like the first, stirrings of spring. If you're following any ancient calendar or, the original Groundhog Day ideas, that it's the first tellings of spring. So the earth is starting to, like, warm up. Not where we can see it fully, but it's the beginning of spring, even though it's snowy outside and freezing.
Well, yeah, we just had the January thaw, and now we're back into a cold snap, but I figure it can only get better from here.
That's right.
And the groundhog is up to do his gig pretty soon. I never really pay much attention to that. I figure it can't really mean anything. 6 more weeks of winter. We always have 6 more weeks of winter. Who's ever heard of it? Winter ending in February in Canada? It's like they should just realize that the whole groundhog thing is just a big scam to just distract us. So just to get our hopes up, It's like the whole thing of all the winter festivities around Christmas time, well positioned to break up the winter blahs. So we have something to be happy about. And then we get the January thaw. That's cool. And then we have we've got Valentine's Day, which I guess to some people is just nothing but depressing, but it's like a big chocolate-covered slap in the face if you're single, And then you have Groundhog Day, so if you didn't get your hopes up for Valentine's Day, you can get them back up for Groundhog Day. Of course, you're almost guaranteed to be disappointed no matter what he does, like I said. But we have to do these kind of things throughout the winter to just keep us going. Look forward to the next parade, I'm looking forward to the one in March already. Yeah, anything, right? So what else is there to do?
I know that we're used to Ontario weather, which is a little bit more mild, and we've been kind of held up, and you see the sun, and the illusory thing about the sun in Winnipeg in the winter is that when you have a sunny day, it's like a warning, don't go outside, because it is frigid. When there's clouds in the sky, it's a little more mild and damp, so there's snow, right? So the temperatures have dropped a bit. But if that sun's in the sky, it is cold, 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 and my kids are getting fooled every time. It's like, oh, it's a sunny day, let's go get some vitamin D. 2 seconds later, their faces are beet red, and they're like, no, let us pack in.
I see these little, flyers that they're putting up here that says, make sure to wear sunscreen in winter, because you can still get a sunburn. Are you kidding me? You know what? You take, half an hour to get yourself bundled up. Then you go outside and you, take a 5-minute walk you seek refuge in a coffee shop or the grocery store or the metro or whatever. I mean, who in their right mind, or just who in the world hangs out outside in the winter in Montreal, in Canada? I guess some people, there's always these, skiing nuts, and I guess if you're doing something like that, but I think most people, the goal is to be as covered as possible. You're not going to be exposing your skin very much.
No, for sure you're not.
So they spent all this money, giving us flyers reminding us to cover our skin with sunscreen in the winter, basically for nothing.
It's ridiculous what they spend their money on. You know what I just found out? I don't know if you've heard this, but this was kind of shocking. Speaking about our government spending our money ridiculously, they put out signs in Hungary saying, no Roma is welcome in Canada. Basically the idea that gypsies aren't welcome here.
Really?
Did you hear anything about that? I found that really fascinating.
Gypsies are so cool.
Well, of course we are.
Oh, you're a gypsy. Oh, right. I've always thought gypsies were super cool. I went to Europe when I was a kid, and I was just fascinated by them because, first of all, they walk barefoot, and I was like, well, that's that's rad, that's cool. Because, why not, right? I mean, okay, they're poor and they don't have shoes and everything, but, most people just wouldn't walk barefoot. So as a child, I just thought, that's far out. I mean, they live in a caravan, their feet are black. Like, that's a really different lifestyle. So I thought, there's something cool that's fascinating. And, plus, you know what? The thing with the gypsies in Europe, I know that they've been really maligning them and saying, and I know that they can be really bold beggars. I've seen that myself, when I went to Poland, is that they come right up to you and everything. But they've been really maligned, and I think that a part of the problem is the fact that they don't register their children at birth. I mean, this is a whole other culture, and you know that, right? Like, they get married young, and they have kids young, and all this kind of stuff. They do a lot of things differently, but they don't register births. That's a serious threat to the system. That means that they're actually not corporate slaves. Yeah. They're a much older tradition too. Like, this is something. It's almost, if you were to compare them to the indigenous here, they're the indigenous of Europe, and they're basically, they've gone through the same types of genocides and everything. Yeah, they did. And do their roots trace back to India? Do you know? Well, some of the Romas do. The Roma peoples do, as far as I know. There was, and it's funny, if you look at, like, ancient stuff, there's that site in India that there's this big, huge radioactive site, hole in the ground. And then if you look into the Vedas, it talks about, there being this burning and people jumping into the water, and a bunch of people left, and it would make sense that they came up through, Turkey and Europe and whatnot. And, I mean, my husband has looked at my eyes at times and gone, they look more Middle Eastern than they do Caucasian. And I've talked about it with my dad and stuff, and a lot of the Eastern Europeans were very dark-skinned. Very, very, very dark-skinned. So it's a possibility. There's evidence towards it. I mean, I'm so far removed, I can't personally say, but there's been a lot of research done on it, and it seems to be that, they come from India. I just wondered because of, for one, when I was there and I saw them, not when I was a kid, it didn't really occur to me, but later, the way that they dressed kind of reminded me a little bit of Indian saris, and they had these, like, long pieces of material on them, and also the way that they were decked out with all these bangles and things, like just the style of dressing that the women had. I thought, wow, it really reminds me a lot of India, and then also the slightly darker skin, but they didn't look Middle Eastern to me. They looked like they use the term Aryan, like, for Iranian, or, you know what I mean? Like, it's not Semitic, it's something else that comes from lower down, not Northern Europe. And it just reminded me of that, the fine features, and some of them had hazel eyes, and I don't know. And just some of their other customs, too. So I always just kind of wondered. But they speak, what language do they speak? Actually, that's, I wish I had a site in front of me now, like, just on hand, but I had read somewhere that they spoke a dialect that was close to nothing except for the old Hindu language. Oh, really? Like, it doesn't connect to any other European language. Oh, my God, that's so awesome. That's so amazing, because I know that the original language from which all the European languages at some point branched, more or less, was a Proto-Indo-European. So this is a very old language that then just kind of branched off. So if this is closer to maybe this old Proto-Indo-European, then, it's fascinating. It is. It's all really interesting. I actually followed my lineage back to, if I was following maternally, that my great-grandmother came from Romania, and she would have been part of the Dacian tribes. And that was really, really, really fascinating. If anybody gets a chance to look into, like, Dacian Gete past history, it's pretty fascinating stuff. The one leader in the time ended up being a student of Pythagoras, and I just, for me, it was just really interesting to delve into all that ancient knowledge kind of type vibe of what they were doing back then. We're going into a break. Sorry, Carrie. But stay tuned, everybody. I'll be back in a moment with Cari-Lee on the Truther Girls. The chat room is open. It's truthergirls.chatango.com, truthergirls.chatango.com, and I'm here talking to Cari-Lee of Lifting the Veil. So welcome back, Cari-Lee.
How you doing?
Good.
Good. Ooh.
So, what kind of stories have you been following in the news lately?
You know, I'm stepping back a little bit. I've been I've been seeing a lot of posts on everything going on with Sandy Hook and whatnot, and I've kind of just taken a back seat to all of that. I'm watching today. There was supposed to be some ruling on the medical marijuana thing in Ontario. Did you see anything about that?
Yeah, I heard about that. People were posting on Facebook saying pot will be legal tomorrow in Canada, but I was sort of skeptical that would actually happen.
Yeah, no dice. It didn't happen, and I guess there's room for an appeal or something, but I'm not sure. And from what I was understanding from a few friends that I saw commenting, there were ways that the judge basically showed him how he could get around it. So if people pay attention to the law, I would think that they can see, if they know it, how to work it the next time. It does seem that some judges are trying to teach a lot of people where they're making their mistakes in their court cases. It's up to the individual, I think, to do the legwork that it takes and the mind work and the research that it takes to get to the bottom of it. But it's a long process from what I see.
Well, what was the case? Do you know?
Quickly, it was a guy in Toronto.
Did it have something to do with these guys who got busted at the equivalent of the Compassion Center in Toronto last year? Or?
No. It was the medical marijuana case, actually. It was Matt Murnag's judgment day. The results were at noon, and it didn't go through provincially. They're taking it to the Supreme Court the next time. Well, it was all over medical marijuana use, and he was the idea of going to a doctor, it's very difficult to get them to sign off on it because, there's no money to be made in the medical marijuana industry. It's all big pharma. We all know that. So it was the idea of, being discriminated against. He needs the medicine. He's asking for it. It's available to him, and no doctor will sign off of it. It's too hard, so they were trying to legalize. And once they take it to the Supreme Court, I guess we'll see what happens from there.
Well, I remember there was a case where all these medical cannabis dispensaries around the Toronto area, they all got busted. And it looked very bad, but in the end, they let them go. Like, they didn't end up putting them all in jail because it's just such a huge issue, and they don't want to come out and make pot legal, but at the same time, I think that they know that there are a lot of people who really need to use it for very legitimate reasons. I mean, look, our own government will give you pot. I mean, you can actually apply for, what do they call it? I don't remember what they call it exactly, but there's just a website, government website. I got a friend here, actually. Hey.
It's a medical marijuana license.
I'm going to ask him, what's that website where you apply for pot from the government? Health Canada, but what is it called? Is it Compassionate Care, or is it one of those? He would know.
I know here in Winnipeg that there's a few places, a few head shops that are doing compassionate care clinics. A few of them have been raided, but they're still going strong and still doing it, and I applaud them for it. But they still don't want anybody rendering the Rick Simpson RSO.
No, and with the what I noticed was, because I have a friend, she has all kinds of health problems, like she has not a tumor in her brain, but like a cyst or something, or maybe it's a tumor, I think, on her pineal gland, and she's got a whole bunch of other problems. And she has one of these licenses to have cannabis from the government, and you actually get your weed from the government. They will send it to you. I don't know how good it is. I remember that there was a guy who came down to Montreal, a friend of mine, and he had this weed, and I don't usually smoke weed, but I smoked a little bit of his, and I said, I like your weed because it's very mild, you know, and from then on I always called it the government pot. And I said he must have got it from the government, you know, like it's really crappy weed. It's like not crappy, but it's just not the kind of wheelchair weed that you're used to in Quebec. Usually it's like super strong, and I can't handle it. But he had this, I think it was like government pot, and I used to call it that behind his back. And then like a year later, somehow it came out that it was actually government pot because they had grown all this weed, and then I don't know why they couldn't give it out or sell it or whatever, so it ended up on the black market. So he had government pot, but apparently you can order your pot from the government, but they only give you a certain amount of dried grams of bud per day. They assume that you're going to be smoking it. You can't get oil. The oil is completely illegal. I think even the dispensaries, nobody, like even the compassion clubs and things like that, they don't give that. And apparently the penalty for oil is very high.
Mm-hmm. Well, because it works.
Yeah, my friend says Toronto had it, but I suspect that it probably wasn't the real Rick Simpson oil. It might have been something else. He said $80 a gram. But it's kind of amazing. I mean, if it's such a dangerous plant and you don't want it on the street, you don't want people using it as no medicinal use, why is the government selling it? So it just goes to show it's a total scam.
Well, like everything else. And I think it's just lovely that you can, walk into a store and buy alcohol and whatever, or you can be hopped up on painkillers and drive, but marijuana is just so scary. Oh, no. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
No, it's total nonsense. I think everybody knows at this point that doesn't make any sense. I think did you notice that the government also sells alcohol in Canada? I don't know how it is in the States, but our government's in charge of alcohol. I think the casino is also like run by the government. The weed, I mean, they just like to be in charge of all these kind of things.
Yeah.
It's either them or the Hells Angels, and they have like an agreement between the two of them.
Well, from one mafioso to the other.
Oh, I know. Mafia is a huge thing here in Quebec. I don't know how it is. You're in where again?
Right now I'm in Winnipeg, but I was in Ontario. And I mean either or. You come into Winnipeg, and I'm telling you, it's a little Rome. It's kind of spooky here. The ledge, the Manitoba Ledge, is built to spec of King Solomon's temple. It's very, very interesting. They've got Hermes on the top. They've got Sphinx outside guarding the Queen. There's a room where you can whisper on a wall and the whole room hears it. It goes up in a spiral. It's the freakiest thing I've ever experienced.
I've never been there. I just know it as Winterpeg.
I suggest everybody come, and when you do, make sure you get a good smudging on your way out.
A good smudging? I had a dream once that I took the metro and came out in Winnipeg.
Oh, that's bizarre.
Yeah, it's weird. Yeah, it was really strange. And in my dream, it was like a real Wild West kind of situation. It was like everything. There was like total lawlessness. And I was like, oh, man, look at this place. What a mess. But, I've never actually been there. Is it like that?
Downtown Winnipeg is very interesting. You're not too far off on your description. It's like nothing I've ever seen here. The child poverty is at a height of the country. The way that it's very much different the way that I see the Indigenous being treated here. The insurance, you don't go to an insurance company. It's all under one insurance group, like all handled by the government. It's very, very bizarre the way that it's like, I don't know. I even heard a rumor, and it might just be a rumor, but I heard a rumor that they test the roads here on vehicles because they're like the worst roads ever to test for suspension and things like that. And truthfully, I've never driven on such horrid roads. Now, that being said, there's been some pretty amazing people that we've met. Winnipeg isn't all bad, but it's if we're talking just about the city and the landmarks and the freaky things that I see, there's a lot of it.
What kind of freaky things? Tell me. I like to hear about freaky things.
Well, it's like the Manitoba Ledge. Like I said, it's all just very ominous when you walk into a building and you've got, two Sphinx guarding the Queen, and you have Hermes sitting on top, and this is supposed to be a legislative building, and it's built to spec of King Solomon, and what's going on? And I understand all this Masonic stuff, and, I've looked into it a little bit, but it's just, when you really you step back and you go, wow, this is our reality, I don't know, to me, that's creepy.
That's creepy. It is. So it's like, is it kind of haunted place? Do you have a lot of haunted things around there?
You know, I've heard a lot of people talk about, I guess there's an old hotel here that is haunted, and they've tried to open it up, and they just can't. Every time they've opened it up, something has happened in it. I imagine that there's a lot of really bizarre old stories. I can't say that I've heard them all, but there's this park that I went to, which with the kids, and there is an actual witch's cottage from Hansel and Gretel. And you walk into it, and it's all paid for by the Corporation of Winnipeg, which I found interesting, and or the Corporation of Manitoba, or either or, regardless. You walk into it, and sure enough, there's Hansel and Gretel in a cage, and there's an owl watching them, and it's just like, it's creepy.
That's freaky.
It really
is. That sounds like Bohemian Grove kind of fairy tale.
Yeah, it's bizarre, you know, and you've got Hansel with a bone in his hand, and I'm like, this is just too much. Even my daughter, who's going to be 12 in April, she's like, oh, that's a little unsettling, you know.
That is. I just told my son the story of Hansel and Gretel the other night, but for some reason, even though I've heard these things many times, I can never remember how they go, so I make it up as I go along. I don't know if I got it right. It's always a little weird every time, you know.
Well, that's even better, though, because then you take it and you make it your own. He probably loves it.
Yeah, he likes it. He likes to listen to all kinds of stories. So you're a mom, too, and you have 2 kids, and you're homeschooling.
Yes, I am, for 2 years now.
So when because were your both kids, were they in school and you took them out, or you just took your daughter out?
It started with my daughter because she's not, I want to say she's not like the rest of the kids. She's not a follower. She's not really into group activities. She's very much an individual, and she was getting fantastic grades, and they still wanted her to get tested for ADHD and ADD, and it happened too many times, and I saw some really bullying type behaviors coming from the teachers, and I was just like, that's it, you know, after 4 or 5 years, I couldn't take it anymore. I wouldn't put her through it anymore, and I took her out, and then I was just like, you know what? I can do this, so I'm doing it.
And your son, was he in school before, too?
Yeah, he was. And, you know, when I took him out, it was pretty amazing because he was really regimented already. He was a good little worker bee. And he'd look at the clock and be like, Mommy, we got to do this now. And I was like, wow, dude, no, you don't. Let's unschool you for a bit. Let's just let you be you. And
yeah, your kids have... Sorry, no, go ahead.
No, that's fine. Go ahead.
Well, it's just because you told me your kids have very different temperaments. And I know how my son is, and he has a different temperament than other kids. And, you know, the funny thing is that what works with one may not work so well with the other. And it's like there's no automatic solution for parenting. You have to just kind of figure out what works for your kid. But you have your daughter who's kind of, you know, she's one way, and then your son is the kind of kid that he really likes to please and go along with the program. So he was just in school for a little while, and he just, like, jumped right into it. And like you say, that kind of a kid can be turned into a worker bee very easily. Very.
And that, you know, that kind of worried me, and it made me really glad that I did what I did because I want him to be himself. You know, I don't want him to just be part of the crowd. He'll figure it out, and he seems to be doing a really good job. He blows me away. Sometimes his speech isn't quite up to what maybe I think it should be, and then he reads a passage out of a book, and it's like, wow, that's amazing. He just blows me away. And, I mean, both of them, their skills, I remember they wanted me to complete the curriculum from like January till June, so I did. And it was like, it took me 2 weeks to get through spelling, 2 weeks to get through math, 2 weeks to get through the science, and that was the curriculum. And I was like, well, what do you guys do during school? They're like, oh, we watch movies and talk and color, and, you know, meanwhile we were going on nature hikes and learning about sacred geometry, and, you know, you can set up your own field trips. You can do your own things. It doesn't have to be, I don't know, it's more of an adventure.
Well, I homeschooled my son for a while. I mean, he was just in the age of pre-K and kindergarten, but I did all that stuff with him, and I started young. Not like I had him sitting at a desk doing, you know, hardcore academics all day or anything, but I made sure to make every day very educational in different ways, but really lots of different things, like helping in the kitchen and going out in nature and doing also some academic things, reading a lot, finding out stuff on the internet, I mean, you name it, right? And I finally had to put him in school because he was with a sitter for about 4.5 hours a day. And he just got too old for that. She has a few, like it's like a private sort of, like a home daycare, but it's just private, and they just take in a few kids, It's not like a real daycare. And that was okay for a while, but I absolutely need some time because I have a lot of things to do, and I just can't attend to him all the time. And I was just going to leave him in there for now and see how it goes when he gets older. We can maybe keep him out. But I ended up putting him in school. I'll tell you about it when we get back. And right now I'm here with Cari-Lee, host of Lifting the Veil on AmericanFreedomRadio.com. And your website, Cari-Lee, is
www.liftingtheveil.ca.
Okay, great. So we were just talking about homeschooling versus the school system, and I said, despite the fact that I really don't like the school system, I did end up putting my son in. There's a couple reasons. One was that I'm the only one who works here in this family, and so I have to work, and you just cannot do everything. It's just this whole superwoman thing. I saw this little cartoon on Facebook, and the woman has like one hand on her laptop and one hand on the stove, and she has 8 arms, right? The baby's in another one, and then her arms are doing all these kind of things. That's kind of how I felt, and it doesn't do anybody good if mom's all burnt out, right? So, and the other thing was, I couldn't keep him in his afternoon daycare or sitter anymore. He was just too old, and it wasn't working, and they were letting him watch TV and stuff. And the other thing was that I really want him to learn French, because I speak French fluently, and I speak French around the house a bit, because I have French friends and people who stay with me. And mostly I speak French when I don't want him to know what I'm saying, but I do want him to learn. That's what I've been doing all along. I mean, I did speak French to him a little bit, but now and then, but mostly I speak French on the phone. I talk French to my friends. I talk French even to Aaron, who doesn't really speak French, but he hopefully can understand me, or at least he pretends to, but who really knows? He's just like, yeah, But anyhow, but I realized, I really want my son to learn French, and so I finally just sent him to school, and he actually likes it a lot. I find that he really likes the social aspect of it. He's not used to being in that kind of structure, and the teacher says he takes forever to do things. But other than that, it's going really well. But
you know what? It depends on the child. It depends on the parent. We don't exactly live in a society where we have enough help to be able to homeschool well. You have to find your niche. There's days where I'm completely frazzled. I try to not get that way now by doing other things. When I feel that, the day's not going to work out the way that maybe I wanted to schedule it to work out, right? But it is a lot more difficult when there aren't other women doing it with you.
You feel isolated.
If we had communities that were more geared towards that, there are a lot of community support, though, if you go looking on the internet in your area, if you need support.
I know they do have that in Montreal, but the problem is I don't have a car, and I'm super busy, and I just don't have time to spend like 2 hours in transit every day, and then that means I have to go there and like hang around while he's doing things, and I really just didn't have the time, so I'd just get up, I'd homeschool him, but I'd incorporate a lot of the schooling into the daily activities. Like we would go out to do shopping, and we would talk about the different things, we would read labels, we would read numbers, so we were incorporating it, but he did, academically, I think he accomplished a lot at home. I mean, he's 5.5 now, and he reads very well. I mean, usually I think at 5 they don't read like this. He can really read. I mean, I give him a book, aimed for young kids, and he can read pretty much everything. I mean, he can't read, the books for older kids, but he can read. So he learned a lot, and I know he learned a lot about a lot of different things, science and math and history. We talked about so many things. So the thing is now, even though he's in school, I want to keep that up somewhat so he doesn't learn it, but he's developed a lot of really good habits. Like he'll sit down in a chair with a magazine and read, or we took him to a bookstore today, and he picked up a comic book, a Garfield comic book, and he's sitting there actually reading it. So, he has that interest in reading from a young age, which I think is good, and interest in a lot of things. So, but you got to do the best you can, and you just can't always do everything. It's just not realistic. And quitting quitting work and what am I supposed to do, go on welfare? I mean, for me, that's absolutely not an option. And I just don't have a lot of support, and that's just the way I had to do it. People were asking about a few things here in the chat room. I'm just going to backtrack a little bit. Oh, I hope I can find them. I know that one thing people were asking about was, the chat's moving really fast now. There was the Super Bowl, and my husband brought this up today. People are saying there's going to be a false flag or a sinkhole because somebody saw in a movie, I think it was in Batman, there's Sandy Hook, and near it there's a football field and there's a sinkhole. But you know what? I've been around so long and I've seen so much of this. It's like every time there's Olympics or a Super Bowl or anything, and people always start speculating that there's going to be some kind of catastrophe, but I really don't think that there's any reason to think that's going to happen. I could be wrong. You guys might say, it's because we exposed it in advance, it doesn't happen. That's possible too. But I think sometimes when you look back in retrospect, you find clues and you say, this corresponds to this. This was a hint that this was going to happen. But I've seen it a couple times, but it's very rare that I've seen people able to predict an event. There was someone who predicted the Fukushima earthquake, and there were some others. What was his name? Bill Cooper, I think, predicted 9/11. And there were a few times where people have predicted things, but most of this time, every time there's a big sports event, really just nothing happens. So I just wanted to mention that. My husband's probably going to cover that on his channel, which is Police State Radio. And the shooting, there was this girl, Hadiya Pendleton. She was a 15-year-old who had performed at Obama's inauguration on the 21st, and she was shot and killed in Harsh Park in Chicago. She was at some school, like some kind of prep school, and I think she was on a break or she'd finished class, and she went to this park. She's not a poor kid, but she wasn't hanging out in this park. And Chicago has a huge gun violence problem. They've had more murders there since, in the corresponding time period, more murders there than soldiers have died in Afghanistan. I mean, it's really bad. And the thing is that Chicago has the toughest gun laws in America. They basically have almost a complete gun ban. I mean, it's very close to having a total gun ban. So it just goes to show that gun restriction really just doesn't work. They also have an enormous amount of crime and gang violence. The proportion is the same as in the rest of the country. It's about 77% gang violence. It's also black on black, which I don't think is irrelevant. And these are gangs. These are poor people. The gun control is obviously not working. I mean, that much we can tell. But what's weird is she had just performed for Obama, and then she goes out, she gets killed, and they say that the attacker just came out of nowhere and ran towards this group and just opened fire. So you kind of even have to wonder, is this a coincidence, or maybe was she targeted because of who she was? I know some people were right away saying, it was a CIA hit, but why would they do that? All it's going to do is show gun control doesn't work. But it's possible that somebody shot her because she had performed at the inauguration. Maybe they had some problem with it. Maybe they were secretly in love with her. I mean, who really knows? But it's very, very sad. And I did a vlog, and I was basically just almost in tears, but I didn't have time to reshoot it, so I just put it up the way it was. So there was that shooting, and people asked about that. So I just wanted to bring it up.
About the Super Bowl, I remember a couple of years ago there was a guy, maybe it was last year, a guy selling a book about how it was going to, be some big, huge false flag, blah, 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 blah. Whatever the case, I just don't pay attention anymore. And because I don't watch the Super Bowl, if something happens, I'll hear about it, I'm sure, and then there's somebody else that's going to be piecing those puzzle pieces together. I'm not saying that it doesn't interest me. It'll interest me, I guess, but that's not what I like to consume my life with, because I think it's a lot of fear propaganda, and it causes a lot of stress. So for me, it's like, they say things are going to happen all the time, and they never really do, and it's all a bunch of hoopla, and it gets everybody all stressed out, and then what? Yay! Yeah,
well,
the
that's
Olympics
true.
were the same way. Like, there was a lot of stuff that was maybe revealed in the Olympics and whatnot that I can appreciate, but at the same time, what actually happened.
Well, they do kind of rituals in public. I think that part is true. They do these occult rituals right there on the stage. But to speculate about what kind of false flag, and that really, it does feed into the fear. And I think they actually want us all to be afraid, not just everybody, but also the subset of us that are kind of conspiracy theorists. We're just afraid in a different way. You know, like with the Olympics, they really ramped up security, and then there were all these leaks about how shoddy the security really was, and people were saying there was going to be a nuclear event, and they made plans for how to evacuate the city, but I think they just want us to be scared. It really just doesn't accomplish very much to worry about things that you really don't have any proof that it's going to happen. I guess it could happen. Anything could happen. And I can't focus on that kind of stuff because I think it's more practical for me to focus on things that I can actually use in my life. So
exactly.
I don't get into that stuff that much anymore.
Yeah, I used to, and then I saw it making me kind of crazy, and I don't need that. You know, I'd rather, I know it's there, and I know that there's only so much I can do about so much. I'm, raising consciousness or spreading good information as much as I possibly can and living it as much as I can and changing myself as much as I can. That's my role in this. I don't want to be stressed out over that kind of stuff.
Sorry, Cari-Lee, we're at the end of the hour, but thank you so much for coming on with me.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks. And everybody, please check out Carrie's show on AFR and her website, liftingtheveil.ca.